Hello and welcome. Ooh, that was not a good starting point. Hello and welcome. Oh man, my tie is messed up too. Okay. Hello and welcome. I'm Kevin J.N. Hughes, your host, and let me just make sure everything is right here. Should have done that before I hit the beginning thing, but I was in the other room with Stella. Um, Hanging out for a second before we started. And just so everybody's aware, I'm not going to get into any specifics, obviously, but my family is kind of going through some difficult things. So I may have to end early tonight. We will see. It all depends on seeing what Stella needs from me and Summerlin as well at this time. So we'll see what happens. But in the meantime, for right now, I am here and we're going to get through as much as we can tonight. I don't know if folks are planning to join, if they aren't planning to join. I don't know. I never ask people ahead of time. I just send the link, and anybody who is game to join is welcome to join for this particular stream. But let's go ahead and pray. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Heavenly King, the Comforter, the Spirit of Truth, you are in all places, filling all things, treasury of good gifts and giver of life. Come and abide in us and cleanse us from all impurity and save our souls, O good one. Lord, I ask that this stream would be blessed, that you would help everything that I'm doing to be blessed and to lead people to the fullness of the faith and holy orthodoxy. Help me to be patient with all, to love my enemies and make me worthy, such that this would be blessed and that people would be led to the fullness of the faith in it. I pray over Stella and Summer and everything that's going on right now, and for our family. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. All right, my people. Let me just double check my notes here. Oh, my cat Maury just ran to check and see what Summerlin's up to. He's just a baby. All right, so chapter 4, the veneration of holy signet images. Clement of Alexandria, 150 to 215 AD, is often considered the first author to attest to Christian use of images in his comments about symbols on signet rings. What has gone virtually unnoticed is that such images were spiritually powerful and would have received honorific gestures. This chapter begins with Clement's view of images, then explores signets and related objects which were venerated in late antiquity. Passages from Clement and Tertullian about Christian baptismal signet will be examined, which point to the apotropaic power and ceremonial handling of the signet. Finally, 3 evidences will be considered for the use of Christian signet images in the first century. So, I think that paragraph speaks for itself as far as an introduction. So, yeah, I mean, I'll just keep going on to get along. Clement on images and idols. It is sometimes alleged that Clement was an aniconist who rejected any ritual use of images. In his work, the Stramata, he states, works of art cannot then be sacred and divine. This has been taken as evidence that Clement rejected the practice of venerating images, since it seems to show he did not believe images were capable of having status. He has a footnote. This way of arguing is sensible. It puts forward reasoning based on the characteristics ascribed to images, which would indicate veneration, as opposed to just looking for descriptions of actions like the Christian bowed to the icon. The same strategy of inferring how an image was or was not used based on qualities ascribed to it stands behind the concept of intrinsically honorable images put forward in this book. Continuing with the main body. However, context makes it clear this is narrowly talking about idolatry. As we see, it was indeed ridiculous, as the philosophers themselves say, for man the plaything of God to make God, and for God to be the plaything of art, since what is made is similar to this or the same to that which it is made of what it is made, as that which is made of ivory is ivory, that which is made of gold is golden. So now the images and the temples constructed by mechanics are made of inert matter, and so they too are inert, material, and profane. And if you perfect the art, they partake of mechanical coarseness. Works of art cannot then be sacred and divine. The fact that idolatry is the concern is clear from his comment that it is ridiculous for man, the plaything of God, to make God, and for God to be the plaything of art. This sentence unambiguously frames his comments as a response to the standard understanding of the idol as a living God, or as the body of a god. We saw that a couple weeks ago. Sako sent us or showed us that video of the Hindu idol ceremony. Clement's continual insistence that the material components of idols are inert or lifeless shows that he is interacting with the idea of animated statuary and rejects that such images come alive when filled with the spirits. From this, it is clear that by sacred and divine, he specifically means to literally be a living God made of the divine substance. Since Christian image veneration does not claim that holy images are gods living or composed of divine substance, this quote has no clear connection to Christian image veneration. So notice that since Clement's objection is to idolatry, and since Clement's objection is to the idea that God can be in the object, or that the object can become a living God because we carve it, since Christians don't believe any of those things about our icons, therefore he isn't talking about icons. He's not even talking about the iconic principle in these passages, because as we've seen, that's not what Christians believe icons to be. Clement also, so this is important because we can already see that the quote mine proof text that Protestants and iconoclasts employ to try to say that Clement is on their side isn't even teaching what they're claiming it's teaching. It has a context. A text without a context is a pretext for a proof text. Knee howdy, Jeremiah says. Knee howdy. Hey, Jeremy, what? That guy's my bro. He's awesome. So Clement is not speaking against Christian images or against icons, but he is making a specific point against idolatry, in the pagan world, and against the idea that God, that God can be created matter. So I'll read the quote again, since not everybody was here. It was indeed ridiculous, as the philosophers themselves say, for man, the plaything of God, to make God. It's ridiculous for us to think we can create God, or for God to be the plaything of art, since what is made is similar and the same to that of which it is made, as that which is made of ivory is ivory, and that which is made of gold is golden. Now, the images and temples constructed by mechanics are made of inert matter, and so they too are inert and material and profane. And if you perfect the art, they partake of mechanical coarseness. Works of art cannot then be sacred and divine. So the works of art not being sacred and divine is specific to idolatry. He's not talking about Christian icons. So Now that we've examined that quote mine, let's examine other things that Clement has to say. So St. Clement is also thought to teach that the cherubim images, sorry, this is Clement. This isn't Clement of Rome. This is Clement of Alexandria. My bad. Clement is also thought to teach that cherubim images in the Mosaic Tabernacle and Solomonic Temple were non-literal in Stramata 5:6. For he who prohibited the making of a graven image would never himself have made an image in the likeness of holy things, nor is there at all any composite thing and creature endowed with sensation of the sort in heaven, but the face is a symbol of the rational soul, and the wings are the lofty ministers and energies and powers right and left. The voice is delightsome glory in the ceaseless contemplation. Let it suffice that the mystic interpretation has advanced so far. However, this does not deny that there were visible handcrafted images of the cherubim. Instead, it indicates such images were symbolic and lacked a strict visual likeness. Exactly. So he's not arguing that Moses didn't make images, you see, or that Moses didn't command the making of images. He's arguing that the specific form they took had a specific purpose. Greco-Roman art was often characterized by a drive to imitate life, and making images that were extremely lifelike and could trick viewers into thinking they were real was a problem that led towards idolatry. In saying there were no likeness to holy things, i.e., the same exact representation, Clement is not denying that each aspect of the cherubim image, a face, wings, mouth, existed and symbolized something. Further, Clement has positive comments about the Egyptians' use of the Sphinx images in the same book, which makes a denial of cherubim images among the Israelites extremely unlikely. Are there other places where Clement where he approves of holy symbolic images? Robert Button draws attention to a passage in Stramata 5:6 where Clement speaks of the visible form of the cross being present in the menorah of the Jewish temple as a prefiguration of the sign of Christ, the visible shape of the cross. In Stramata 5:6, Clement speaks of the symbolic meaning of the golden lampstand of the temple referred to in Exodus 25:31 through 40. He writes, "The golden lamp conveys another enigma as the sign of Christ, not in respect to form alone, but in his casting light at sundry times and diverse manners on those who believe on him and hope, and who see by means of the ministry of the firstborn." Here, the lampstand is a symbol of the cross, that Greek phraseology, not only by virtue of an iconic connection between its shape and that of the cruciform, but in the additional sense of its illuminating function for the faithful. So we see that the lampstand or menorah was a symbol of the cross because by the cross we receive light, and also because it spreads out just as the cross does. By the way, the reason why I'm not reading the Greek aloud is because, in case you can't tell, I'm sniffling a lot and I don't want to mispronounce a bunch of words out and spend my time sounding them out. So I'm not going to do that. Sometimes I do, and sometimes I don't. Tonight is definitely going to be a night where I don't. So I apologize for those of you who prefer when I do. I used to be able to read Greek much better than I can now, but now I'm basically sight reading when I read it anyway. So I don't know that I'm really reading Greek any better than you guys can yourselves. Or a lot of you guys can probably read it much better than me if you're using it as frequently as I was back when like I was in school and stuff. Give me 1 second. Sorry about that. Button's use of the word iconic precisely captured. It was iconic, bruh. No, I'm just kidding. He's talking about the iconic principle, obviously. Button's use of the word iconic precisely captures the sense of what Clement teaches about the lampstand or menorah. The visible form of the image, as well as its lights, have a spiritual aspect. That's iconic, my man. That's iconic. It's iconic. It has a visual aspect and a spiritual aspect. No, but so it's iconic because it symbolizes what Christ was going to do for us on the cross. So in the old covenant, this menorah functions as an icon of Christ to come. In the new covenant, we actually still use menorahs in the on the altar and in the church. So in our temple, we also have a menorah, and that signifies and is an icon of the cross that Christ has come. You see, the cross that Christ has died on, and in dying given us life on. The cross that gives us light. They were prefiguring the cross that would give them light. We are looking back to the cross that does give us light. These features simultaneously point beyond the lamp to their prototype, the cross, which Clement customarily calls the sign of Christ, and make the visible form of that sign a conduit for divine illumination. This would imply the presence of this symbol or shape elsewhere. There would have the power of spiritually casting light. Such an understanding of an image shows that Clement has a highly developed icon theology that anticipates the later Orthodox understanding of holy images as conduits for divine grace, connecting the viewer to the prototype. This view of the visible depicted shape of the cross is an extension of Clement's broader understanding of how visible creation is a conduit for the connection to God. Dr. Doru Kostaki, Dr. Doru, he's Dr. Doru, Dr. Doru, Dr. Doru, Dr. Doru, Dr. Doru, Dr. Doru. He's Dr. Doru, Dr. Doru, Dr. Doru. Hee, Dr. Doru, yeah, ooh, yeah, what? I just lost a viewer doing that. Somebody was like, it was probably Jeremiah. He probably left. He was like, I can't watch this. He's like, I'm embarrassed. That or it was Stella. She was like, nope. Can't deal with my husband doing this crap. Dr. Doru Kostash, Dr. yeah, Jeremiah. Jeremiah, yes, it was me who left. Dr. Doru Kostaki notes that in Clement, quote, the cosmos as both revelation and doxology mediates access to the divine in a way that in the same way the icon does, end quote. In the way the icon does. So Dr. Doru, he's pointing out that in Clement, we see the iconic principle present in the menorah. He's saying that the menorah functions as an icon of the cross in the same way that our icons function as an icon of Christ and his mother, and the saints. He points to a passage in which Clement states that, quote, through contemplating created things, end quote, Christians, quote, revere God's energy and will, end quote, Stromata 7, 1486-2. Kostak's translation. Kostak draws out Kostak. Beat it, toots. Have seen this town eat fish like you for breakfast and spit them up. Detective Kostak. Detective Kostak, no, I'm just kidding, Dr. Kostak, draws out the implication of Clement's statement. Such spiritually advanced Christians view the cosmos reverently as theophany and privileged locus for meeting the divine. Far from being aniconic or having a Platonic hesitancy about the material world, Clement's teachings are an early version of iconodual theology. So we can see in Clement, through this quote about the menorah, we can see that Clement is actually pro-icon. Clement is actually teaching the very iconic principle that we are teaching. So this shows how prevalent this is. So again, we've already seen that when Clement discusses art not being able to be divine, he's talking about idolatry. Now we see that when he talks about icons and the iconic principle, he's in favor of it. So again, we're seeing, just to recap what we've gone over so far, we've seen that Clement of Alexandria is not aniconic. He's actually an iconodual. And in his iconodulia, he's still rejecting idolatry. And so we see that in the early church, they have a distinction between the idol and the icon, in which they reject the idol and they embrace the icon. Let's keep going. Clement and honoring gold signet images. In his text, the instructor, Logos Paidagogos, Paideia, what? There's a Christian school, not in our town, but in a town close to us that's called Paideia. So when I see Logos Paidagogos, I think of Paideia. Clement of Alexandria gives ethical counsel to prepare Christians for baptism. His teaching includes parameters for the use of signet rings by Christians. And if it is necessary for us, while engaged in public business or the discharging of other avocations in the country and often away from our wives, to seal anything for the sake of safety, he, the Word, allows us a signet for this purpose only. Other finger rings are to be cast off, since, according to the Scriptures, instruction is a golden ornament for the wise man. Sirach 21:21. Sorry, guys. Usually I would probably take like a cold medicine so that I wouldn't be sneezing so much. But I've been taking methylene blue to help with my energy levels and muscle soreness, and methylene blue reacts badly to cold medicine, and even to like my Benadryl or anything. So just have to deal with the sniffles today. Pretty sure it's just allergies. The purpose in view in wearing signet ring images comports with their general use in Roman society and biblical narratives as a way of sealing property or documents by imprinting the seal image. The significance of such images goes farther than being mere ownership markers. These images were not expressions of idiosyncratic preference, but were rather connected to the sources of honor and authority for household or office holder. The signs engraved upon rings were very various, as we may judge from the specimens still extant. They were portraits of ancestors or friends, subjects connected with mythology or the worship of the gods. In many cases, a person had engraved upon his seal symbolic allusions to the real or mythical history of his family. Sulla, the Roman dictator, thus wore a ring with a gem, on which Jugurtha. That sounds like it would be a fat Hebrew woman. Jugurtha. She's Jugurtha. His rival to power. His rival to power was Jugurtha. You know who Jugurtha is? It's Benjamin Netanyahu. He's much older than we thought. Benjamin Netanyahu is Jugurtha. Hey, yo, I'm Jugurtha. Benjamin Netanyahu. Jugurtha. His rival. Jugurtha. His rival for power was represented at the moment he was made a prisoner. Well, that's good that he put Netanyahu in prison. I'm glad to hear that. Pompey used a ring on which 3 trophies were represented. And Augustus at first, I'm sorry guys, sealed it with a sphinx. Afterward with a portrait of Alexander the Great, and at last with his own portrait, which was subsequently done by several emperors. So this is an example. As a modern state seal on a document would indicate the status and authority associated with the document, so also a signet imprint carried weight depending on who it was associated with. It should say depending on with whom it was associated. No, I'm just kidding. Who cares? Depending on who it was associated with. This would in turn be connected with the kind of image on the ring, extending the authority represented, such as that of the emperor, into the visible world. The equivalence of such images with state seals and coats of arms points to how such images would be placed in order to receive reverent focus and gestures of honor, as when a family coat of arms is imprinted on an exalted flag. So we can understand signet rings. We can understand the purpose of the signet rings by seeing what's depicted on them. They're using inherently venerable images on the signet rings, which shows that they were meant for veneration. Beyond that, we know that people did in fact venerate them. And they also functioned as a symbol of the power of the individual and even an extension of his power. One ring to rule them all. One ring. I don't remember. I was going to try to recite the whole poem. I remember the Aragorn poem, but I don't remember the One Ring poem. The Aragorn poem is my favorite. My wife, we were at City Liquidators a few days ago, and my wife Stella and I were walking around, and they had a mural that said, "Not all who wander are lost." And I launched into the Aragorn poem. I was like, "All that is gold does not glitter. Not all those who wander are lost. The old which is strong does not wither. Deep roots are not reached by the frost." And I got no further than that before my wife cut me off and is like, "Isn't it isn't it not all that glitters is gold? And I'm like, no, that's a different thing. That's not the Aragorn poem. It's not the Aragorn poem. But she believed me, so we're good. From the ashes a fire shall be woken, from the shadows a new light shall spring. Renewed shall be blade which was broken, the crownless again shall be king. I think that poem is symbolic of Gavril Doroshin, the true king. No, I'm just kidding. This becomes especially important in the case of the emperor himself, since the ring of the Roman Empire, the ring of the Roman emperor was a kind of state seal. Ladies, if you're asking how often your man thinks about the Roman Empire, if he's reading this book, at least once, because we're talking about it right now. There you go. Was the official state seal. Here, it is highly significant that such rings were composed of gold and could only be bestowed to those of lower rank by the emperor or during the non-imperial phase of the republic by the Senate. Pliny the Elder, a first-century scholar and associate of the Roman emperors, notes in his Natural History the evolution of practices related to the use of gold in Roman culture. Gold naturally evokes a respectful response, and it is a disgrace and an insult upon nature to use it for lowly purposes. The concern about honor and proper use of gold led to restriction in who could receive and handle a golden signet. Initially, such rings were worn by those who were about to proceed on an embassy to foreign nations. Nor was it the practice for any person to wear these rings except those who, for this reason, had received them at the public expense. Pliny notes that certain citizens were given the distinction of wearing the likeness of the emperor engraved in gold upon a ring. As Margaret Mitchell notes, in the late 100s, Roman rule was exercised from a distance by imperial and senatorial decree, marked by the signet ring, the seal of the emperor, which was also borne on gold rings carried by his legates. It is important in this context to re-emphasize the lack of distinction between political and religious authority in the Roman world. Not only the emperor, but also the Senate was widely acknowledged as sacred, an appellation, which even not Appalachian. If you say Appalachia, I'll throw an apple at you. They're not Appalachians. The appellation, which even a Christian such as St. Justin Martyr uses in First Apology. The receipt of gold signet ring image authority imbued with honor and status from a sacred authority should therefore be seen as following a mode of image veneration which we see in handling of a state flag and other authority-laden images. By the act of restricting who granted, carried, and used the imperial signet image, its honorable status was acknowledged in a concrete way, just as having a color guard who officially receives from above and reverently bears a flag image is a way of showing it honor, so also in the case of Rome. The Roman emperor would grant permission to his legates to bear the authority-laden imperial signet, handled with reverence to acknowledge its sacral status. So we see in the way that these rings were handled and in the way that these rings were treated as something special that not everybody was allowed to handle, but only those who were given this authority from either the emperor himself or the Senate, we can see the honored status that these things possessed. So you can already probably see where he's going with this, that from this we can see that since we've already seen that Christians were using signet rings, we therefore discern in this use of signet rings that they too were venerating them. Since it seems unlikely that they would have gone through the trouble to adopt this practice, well, not adopting the context in which this practice exists in some sense, unless they expressly stated, only use signet rings in this way, don't venerate them, but nowhere do they say that. They simply say to use signet rings, which, as we'll see, on which they depict the saint and the cross and these things, and the Good Shepherd icon. So we have good reason to believe that they were venerating them. But I will let Michael Garton make that case for you. I'm anticipating it because I've read this book before. Within this Roman framework, Clement's teaching about the source and use of Christian signet rings is striking. Here also he states that such ring images are for exercising authority and emphasizes that these images, or the ring housing them, are to be made of gold. He states that they can only be worn by Christ's own permission. The Word, Jesus, then permits them a finger ring of gold, nor is this for ornament, but for sealing things which are worth keeping safe in the house in the exercise of the charge of housekeeping. For if we were all well trained, there would be no need of seals, if servants and masters were equally honest. But since want of training produces an inclination to dishonesty, we do require seals. The language of permits has dual importance. It points to a restraint about ornamentation, but this cannot be taken too far. The use of gold is very exalted, and not only because of gold's universal significance in symbolism, glory, divine royalty, eternity, incorruptibility, but also since the right to wear a golden signet came from an emperor. Margaret A. Mitchell, who was cited above as noting the official entrusting of the golden imperial signet to legates, states, Clement accords to Jesus the imperial prerogative of granting the right to wear a gold ring, annulus aureus. The annulus aureus. That sounds like something from Warhammer 40k. Annulus aureus. Bring me the annulus aureus. The imperium shall rise. This is the gesture of ceremonial handling done toward the Christian signet image. In other words, an act of veneration. Such a picture fits very well with the broader early Christian material culture, which followed the rest of the Roman world in identifying gold as evoking veneration. See Appendix 1, the hierarchy of materials in early Christianity. We will eventually read Appendix 1 as well as the other things we're reading. Let's see. I'm going to read at least to the end of this section, and then maybe read one more section at least, and see if we have any questions or anything. And if not, I don't know, I might close out a little early tonight, just because, like I said before, there's kind of a lot going on in our household, and I want to make sure that I'm being cognizant of that. But I didn't want to completely miss out on the book club, and I didn't know who all would show up. So I know for a fact that who we've got is the Jeremiah Jeremiah the Great, which is awesome. Ceremonially handling an image, such as assigning color guards to bear the American flag, often includes a concern about proper decorum in how the object is handled. For Americans, this includes the color guard's proper folding, presentation, and storage of their flag. In the Roman context, Isidore of Seville, that's another Tolkien-esque name, Isidore of Seville recounts that Gracchus, oh no, more like Jeremid, no, Jeremossum, that was funny though, Jeremid. In the Roman context, Isidore of Seville recounts that Gracchus attacked his enemy Manus using the accusation of improper ring wearing in his trial by saying, "Look upon the left hand of this man to whose authority we bow, but who with a woman's vanity is adorned like a woman." End quote. Ooh, snap, son. What he told you, boy. He said, look at this fool. What? Look at this fool. Look at his left hand. You see that he's a man with authority, and yet he has a woman's vanity. Oh, and all of his friends were like, oh, he's adorned like a woman. You gonna wear a dress too, boy? Should we call you she/her? What? Oh. Clement exhibits the same interest in the reverent handling of the ring when he instructs, "Men are not to wear the ring on the joint, for this is feminine." So does this mean that Clement of Alexandria was the first to say that's gay? That's gay. Don't wear your ring like that. It's gay. I don't know why, but that brings me so much joy. The fact that Christian signets were restricted in their use to give only from above and entrusted in the context of ritual is confirmed by the testimony of Tertullian. Applying the parable of the prodigal son to baptism, Tertullian states that the newly baptized receives again the pristine garment, the condition, to wit, which Adam by transgression had lost. The ring also he is then wont to receive. For the first time, wherewith, after being interrogated, he publicly seals the agreement of faith, and thus thenceforward feeds upon the fatness of the Lord's body, the Eucharist, to wit. This will be the prodigal son, who, never in days bygone, was thrifty. This restriction on receiving the signet is another testimony affirming what Clement says. By his action, the church of giving life to the baptized Christian, the Logos is the one who gives permission to wear the honorable Christian signet image. Such images were venerated by ceremonial handling through restriction, bestowal, and reverent handling of an honorable golden image. So we've already seen at least one way in which Christian signet rings were used, and we've seen how Christian signet rings were venerated. I'm going to stop here for this week since we don't have our full complement. We don't have our full cadre. Our cadre, what? We don't have our cadre tonight, boy. No, I'm done. Our cohort, if you will. We don't have our cohort. So I'm going to stop for tonight because I want to preserve as much as I can. my own energy, and make sure that I check up on Stella Bell real quick here. And Summer Leon, what? So I'm gonna close us out, but I appreciate you. I appreciate Jeremiah. And next week we're gonna start with honoring images of authority. So we've already seen one way in which Christian signet rings are inherently honorable. Good to see you too, Jer. I appreciate you, my man. And we've already seen one way in which they were venerated by Christians. So I think this is a good place for us to kind of stop, and we can ponder that. And then as we continue, we're going to see more of how Christians applied this concept of the signet ring. So God bless you guys, and share this with your friends so that they too can be freed indeed. God bless.